Welcome to the podcast, Disrupt Education 2023. We're well into February now. Alli, how you doing?
Great. It is the north is very wintry. Okay. It's by January of 2023, we already had more snow than we usually get by March.
Oh, wow.
So, winter wonderland up here in the north. How about in Chicago where you're at?
Always cold. Always, maybe rain, maybe some sun, maybe some wind, maybe some, nothing. It's it's
We're
it's
getting close to
dark at
spring.
night and it's light during the day. That's about it.
There we go. There we
So,
go.
well, I'm excited about this podcast. We have a teacher who has a side hustle teaching fifth grade math. It seems to be in a STEM academy. Kareem Price is with us. Kareem, how are you, man?
I'm pretty good. How are you today?
We're doing wonderful. We're doing wonderful. So before we jump into everything around, side gigs, teaching math, STEM in Chicago, tell us a little bit more about who you are and what you're doing these days around education and obviously outside of education as well.
So thanks for having me. I do appreciate it. This is a very interesting podcast.
Awesome.
I'm Kareem Price. I am a dad, a husband. I'm a teacher, Chicago Public Schools. Actually, my 23rd year, my anniversary was January 3rd.
All right.
So this is my 23rd year teaching, being in education, mostly in the math area. I did a couple years of science. I've been a coach for a couple years at the Office of Math and Science for CPS. And most recently, I have been middle school teacher and fifth grade math teacher at Persian STEM, we've newly become a STEM school, magnet in Chicago's Bronzeville area.
Have you taught across different levels? Like in the burbs here, and fifth grade could be considered elementary or middle school. What levels have you taught all across? Has it always been just right around middle school?
Yeah, this is my first year being in fifth grade. I've been sixth through eighth every other year. So this is a new experience for me.
Yeah. God bless you, man. This is some fun kids.
Yeah. Well, our building is a K to 8. So
Yeah.
if I really miss them, I could just go visit them.
There we go. There we go. Let's just jump into like why an educator, man. I think it's a very important question for everyone who steps into the field of education, especially obviously in the age ranges that. For me, as a high school educator, my wife's an elementary school educator. I have two kids as well who have gone through those grades that you teach, and it's not an easy. But what made you want to do it, man?
It took me a while to get to education. My original, when I went into college, I wanted to be an accountant.
Mm-hmm.
And I took that first accounting class, and I was like, ooh. And it just, in hindsight, I probably shouldn't have started right off into my major. But I changed majors a couple times. And my roommate, at the time, I remember coming back from taking a computer science test, and that I failed. And I was like, man, I think I'm gonna end up dropping out of school. I don't think this is gonna work out for me. He said, man, try education. I'm a couple years into the program, and I said, okay, I'll give it a shot. And it stuck for me. And went out, did my student teaching, and student teaching was very difficult for me because I did my observations in Elmhurst, in the suburban school districts, and I did my student teaching in Chicago, and it was a very different experience from what I observed, in Elmhurst. And I had been into a classroom, with 12-year-old kids since I was 12 years old. So it had been a long time, and I forgot what it was like. So my first couple of years were very, very interesting. I learned a lot in my first couple of years, but that's how I got there. My roommate, Noah Cannon, was like, "Hey, get us a shot," and it worked out. And I can remember being in like 5th and 7th, 8th grade, remembering my math teachers at those grade levels and just loving math. So math was obviously, what I was going to teach. That was a no-brainer, but getting into teaching took a while.
I remember my 7th and 8th grade math teacher for sure. I remember her having us stand on the desk and then be like, slope, to help us remember the vertical line. It's a very formative age range to teach in that. And I know for me, I was a chemistry educator, and I know how influential my high school chemistry teacher was in getting me interested in the subject. And math was the same way. A lot of my favorite educators growing up were in the middle school and high school age range for what I ended up pursuing. You said something, you said a couple things that you quote unquote failed your computer science test or some of the accounting things, and I'm just curious if that kind of experience has shaped how you approach teaching and learning throughout your career, having, you said you didn't get there at first. So has any of that experience kind of shaped who you are as an educator today, or how you view education?
Yeah, a big word in my classroom is perseverance. You might not get it the first time. There's a very good chance that you won't get it the first time, but that doesn't mean that you won't get it, So maybe had I persevered through that accounting class, I wouldn't be here now. We never know. But I think that is something, really important to teach kids, that this notion that if I don't get it, like that, that I did, that I'm not going to be successful in whatever this thing is. And, teaching people that they can do hard things. That's how you grow. Difficult tasks or, things that are a little bit out your comfort zone are pretty much what makes you who you are. My students, I was like, "Oh, this is so hard." And I said, "Yeah, it's supposed to be." We did things that you already knew. There's no point in any of us being here. So yeah, that kind of, I didn't have that mindset at the time. Being 18 or 17, 18, like, "Oh, this is hard. I'm just switch to something else." But definitely in my classroom, we productive struggle is big.
I like that word, productive struggle. That's awesome. Likely going to name the whole podcast that, so everybody is listening to it. So as Alli's standing on desk as a preteen and having fun with slopes, I'm curious to know, we all have that educator, and I think in 23 here, what we want to do is amplify some of the things that previous educators have done to help us in our own field as educators, inside and outside of the system. Do you have a story of some of the educators, especially the math educators, like, this is something that clicked with me? And then what have you used or taken from that to use in your classrooms today?
I can remember being in maybe 6th, 7th, 8th grade or whatever. And I was a undersized kid. So I wasn't like really good at sports. I wasn't like, it was super cool, like, cool kid that everybody gravitated to, but I was really good at math, and I felt like that was gonna be like, this is gonna be my thing, and like, I'm gonna be the smart math kid. And my teacher, Mr. Gagiano, I feel like he really like understood that. Like, I liked sports, I liked being funny and this, that, and the third, but like I excelled at, in middle school at math. And I feel like he made it, he made me confident in that, because, you know, the cool math kid, that's not a thing. Like, so, you know, he made me feel confident. He challenged me a lot. You know, I just felt like he made it, he made me feel like if this is your niche, that's fine. You know, just be you, be the, you know, be the smart kid, be the smart kid in math. And I can remember like going to high school and freshman year algebra, we had done a lot of those things, those concepts, and like I felt like the smart kid again, you know, because he had me prepared. Yeah, Mr. Gagliano definitely is like the first name that I think of in like my elementary and middle school as a teacher.
Have you taken some of those pieces of how he, you know, helped you create that confidence? Do you take that into the classroom today? And, you know, do you have any stories around that?
You know, I just know that I try to highlight kids, you know, what they're good at. I try to find their interest and try to relate it to a math lesson or somehow, some way. You know, I explicitly tell kids it's fine to be you. It's only one you. Just be the best you that you can be. You know, I just try to make kids feel comfortable and make them, you know, understand mistakes happen. You know, I try to make the environment as light as possible while we're still learning. So yeah, I just try to put kids in a, you know, where they can feel comfortable while they're learning. You know, I do have, and he also had super high standards for us, and he made it, you know, he made you work. Like like your brain was working with him. So I try to, you know, make where the kids are questioning themselves and, you know, thinking at higher levels.
I always told my students, I was like, you may not appreciate me now, and I'm okay with getting a letter in 10 years or an email. That yes, I'm gonna make your brain a little mushy right now. So I think that's really important in the education space. I like the productive struggle that you talked about earlier. Do you have any, you know, like when you think over the span of your 23 plus year teaching career now, a favorite like teaching moment or learning moment that has just kind of, you know, you've carried with you over the years, and would want to share with us in terms of here on the Disrupt Education podcast?
I had a student, not a very studious kid, good kid, but he struggled, and with his struggles came, you know, off-task behavior. So I drew a circle one day and I said, this is you. You're going around in this circle. And I said, think of a person who doesn't have a car. So you don't have a car, so you can't go to work. You can't go to work, you don't get money. You don't get money, you don't have a car. Anyway, it just went around. I said, this is you. You come to class, you, I think I said you, have a hard time doing the work, so you talk. Don't pay attention. When you talk and don't pay attention, you don't get the concepts or the ideas or the teaching, and then you struggle with the work. And this is you just going around in a circle, going around in a circle. I saw the kid like 2 years later on a field trip. He was in high school. And we were at Soldiers Field for something, I can't remember. And he came up to me and he said, I got out. I'm not in the circle no more. I'm not doing the circle no more. And I knew exactly what he meant as soon as he said it. And I said, good, I'm proud of you. Um, and I don't know how far he was off the circle or how, but he remembered that. And I was like, I'm happy that you remember that. I'm glad that you got it. Probably at the moment he was like, he probably was maybe in 7th or 8th grade when I gave him that example, and he probably was like, yeah, whatever. But I saw him on that field trip, and it was I think we were at Soldier Field, and I could have ran into a million kids, and I ran into that kid that I know, and he told me that. That was the first thing he said, ran up to me.
It's interesting because I share a story in accounting with you. I did have a business minor, and then I ended up I had to get a business major for business education, and I was very close to becoming a CPA. But my first time that I took accounting, I had to withdraw from the class. So I feel that, man. Like I was just like, I don't know what is going on. It seemed like it was supposed to be basic algebra, and then it just went crazy, But now, I'm certified to teach, high school level accounting and such. But going through that process, what I wanted to ask you is, kind of going through, how you learn, and then realizing that when you have a failure like that, and it's like, no, how did you get yourself through that, that blocker, if you will, in your kind of learning the way that you're learning, and continue going? Because I think that's a huge. We all know that's a huge blocker for a lot of students, especially, you got this kid out of the circle, which I absolutely love this story. How did you get yourself out of that small circle of accounting and continue to, what was it?
I think the first problem was I had never really, that was like my first bad, I was never like a, straight A student,
Mm-hmm.
but I never got to a class and was like, oh, I'm really having a hard time with this for whatever reason, whether it was bad study habits or, not having, the prior knowledge or whatever, especially in math. That was the first time I came across something mathematically and was like, this isn't working for me. So I had to just kind of pull myself by my bootstraps, I guess. It was like, well, I spent a lot of time kind of being one of the smartest kids, in my classes or whatever. So I don't know. I guess I gave myself a pep talk, saying, you have to get it done, whatever it is at the time, because graduation is the ultimate goal. From college. So you that's probably why I ended up switching majors a couple times. But just I guess having that end goal of graduating in mind, knowing that I had a 4-year plan in my head and I wanted to continue my plan. I don't think I guess as I got older, I had better study habits, just maturing a little bit and realizing that you're at a different level, and, you have to allocate time definitely more than what you did in high school, and definitely more than what you did in elementary school. So probably just a little bit of age, and being focused on that final goal of, graduating. I wouldn't say that I learned I don't think my learning style changed or anything like that. Probably just the maturity.
There's something to be said about like growing in and maturing into your learning style and like embracing it over time, that it can be difficult for students at times. They kind of want to fight against it. I have found in the classroom, they're like, no, I want to learn this way. And you're like, okay, well, it's a maturity thing sometimes, like their skill sets. So Peter mentioned that you have a side hustle of sorts. And I'm curious to learn more about that and how long you've had it, what, kind of prompted it, if it's related to education or not. I know myself, as an educator, I've almost always had something else. Sometimes it was for the extra cash. It was just like a hobby that grew into something else. And then I even left the classroom to pursue entrepreneurship full time. So curious where you're at, in your own side hustling, journey, and kind of where that started and where it is now.
So in 2016, I started a clothing line called Shabby Fly, and it's a small business. We've been running out of the basement. Most recently, we have moved out of the basement, which is a big deal to a space where we can keep the inventory and do a little office work and things of that nature. It started when I moved to Oak Park, which is the town that I live in now. I had always thought about shirt ideas. I always thought like, hey, I got an idea for something to put on a shirt, but never did any of the work to figure out what it would take to do. And then I want to say in the fall of 2016, I just said I'm gonna do it. I got my website and did all that, got some shirts printed up and started, selling them. It has been a very, entrepreneurship is a lot of ups and downs. A lot of ups and downs. I tell a story to people and I'm like, it was a point in time where I thought my website was broken because I didn't sell shirts for so long. I was like, it has to be broken. Like, there's no way that nobody's buying any shirts. So that grew into The Village. And The Village is a kind of offshoot of Shabby Fly that I worked on with a partner of mine, Vic Sanchez. And The Village has a charitable aspect to it. So if you can see, I have on one of the Village t-shirts now. Our first season this year, we did a pop-up. We called it a pop-up with a purpose. And the purpose was to donate money to Hepzibah, which is a local organization here in Oak Park, Illinois. And they work with children in like the foster system. They have a camp in the summer called a SIB camp, Hepzibah, but they put the SIB in there, summer camp, and it reunites kids with their siblings who are in different foster homes. So kids that have been separated from their siblings, they bring them together for like a 2-week camp, and it gets them to at least have some time with their siblings, in a fun environment. So we did a pop-up shop, and we were able to donate $1,300 to the SIB camp, which was real good for us, being our first go around with season 1. And just our overall goal is to every season pick a different charity, have a different design of a shirt, do a pop-up, and then donate a portion of the proceeds to those camps or those organizations, I should say.
I've worked with the Hepzibah House, and when I used to teach, I actually used to teach with a colleague of ours. I'll give him a shout out, Derek Purvis, at Oak Park and River Forest High School. It's amazing. It is an amazing entity that helps youth, changes lives, in some pretty tough situations. So that's amazing. I really like the fact of connecting community. And that kind of leads me into, community and education and learning. Well, I bet you know accounting now, right?
Funny, I just told my wife there as I was trying to doing the end of the year books and get everything evened out. I was like, I need a a bookkeeper or something. And she just looked at me crazy. Like, you're everything. You're the bookkeeper. You're the marketing guy. I was like, I know.
Yeah. Totally empathize as a entrepreneur myself, and obviously Allie's an entrepreneur, and I teach it in high school. And so, with that being said, do you take any of the experiences back into the classroom with kids? Because I know, like in this day and age, a lot of students they need the academics, right? They need the foundation, but they always have a thirst for making some cash or helping out at home or building a business, and with whatever dreams that they have. Have you taken the village or the rest of your business ideas into the classroom and kind of work with students there?
Yeah, I've had students that actually were starting clothing brands.
Wow.
That were making designs, and I was able to give them some tips and some ideas, things that they had no idea about, just giving them pointers and things that they can think about as they were trying to, start up their own business. I did do a small, it wasn't with my business, but it was with the idea of real estate with some of with my students a couple years ago. I was able to have one of my students' parents was a realtor, so she came in and I talked to the kids about just what real estate is, and giving them some of the basics. And with my students, we did like a mock loan process and filling out loans and things like that. I think the kids definitely want to have ways to make their own money. So I talk to the kids about ways that they can generate revenue, whether it be shoveling snow, raking grass, raking leaves, cutting grass, things like that. Just getting them to come up with ideas of how they can make a couple bucks here and there. I think the kids are real receptive once you start talking to them about money. They definitely spark up. We've done just smaller projects where kids create a business or a business idea, I should say. And we talk about the difference between profit and what you bring in isn't always your profit, and taxes, how you split the money with your partners and things like that. So just getting them an idea. I don't think that is that was something that I was really taught in elementary. We were definitely more in the book, with our education. And it's also interesting to just get the kids' ideas of, what they think is a good business and, how they can make money. Most recently, I was talking to my students about just inventions. And this kid said that she would make an invention that automatically closes your bedroom door. Like if you hear your parents coming towards your door and be like, and all the kids are like, I would buy that, I would buy that, I would buy that. So it's just good to get their ideas and, see how their classmates react to their ideas.
I know my kids would actually buy that. It's
Right.
interesting. What you're talking about here is, I did not mention this before, but my father was a math educator at the high school level for over 30 years. And he said, as soon as you put a dollar sign on a number, kids get it, usually. So I love that.
I know my students did when I was teaching them significant figures. Any of my former students listening to this are like, sig figs. But as soon as you would put like rounding rules and you'd make it money related, man, they would be like, they would then want to round properly, be like, the bank ain't taking my money. And I'm like, yeah, because you just cut yourself $10,000 with your incorrect rounding rules. And then they get it.
The decimals with that for a kid, and it's like, oh, I had the decimal in the wrong space. Well, it's only one space over. Well, you want $30 or you want $300? And they're like, oh yeah, I want $300. I was like, so that decimal needs to be in the right spot.
It seems like you've had an awesome teaching career, just the way you talk about it and the energy that you bring to the classroom. And obviously you've been in it for long enough, so you haven't left. But what would you change or disrupt that you see, and or have seen as something that, you would really want to change moving forward in education that you would think would really benefit those in the educational space and whatnot. Be very curious on what are some things that you might shift, change in from your current practice or things that you are doing right now.
First thing off the top of my head is how we use technology. I think there's so much out there for technology wise, like how we're using it. And I don't think that throwing a kid on an iPad and having them work on multiplication is how we should be using technology. I don't think putting a kid on Epic, which is a reading program, is how we should be using technology. I think we should give a kid a regular book and let them read the regular book. I think we can have kids work on number facts and things of that nature without being in front of a screen. I see how my students, my own kids, I have kids 10 and 8, well, just turned 11, sorry. Just turned 11 on the 3rd. How they kind of zone out on the screens. I think technology should be used, but we should be teaching kids how to code more. We should be teaching kids how to use spreadsheets. We should be teaching kids how to create podcasts, how to create music. I feel like that we are using technology as I'm just throwing a kid on a computer and they're doing things that they could be doing regularly without the computer. Mm-hmm. There are mandates that I follow, but I try to limit my students, I should say, my personal kids too, the time on the screen for things that they could be, just doing it regularly. That's what I would disrupt. I think that we have leaned on it too much now. Mm-hmm. And it's becoming, I don't know, it's becoming like I see kids on a computer, how it's like this glazed over look. And it just kind of, I don't like it. So that's what I would disrupt, how we use technology.
I really like that, except, at the age that I think that we all are, I'm not going to categorize you all at my age. I'm probably the oldest in this room, but we didn't have this, right? And then, our deeper curiosity in technology and how, now we're getting into AI and all these other things that are coming. I feel like I hear like the curiosity has been pulled from the students because they've never been without it. They don't really understand how powerful it is, in that change. And really, honestly, you're right. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I'm looking at doing is similar to what you're saying is, we're going to have Talk It Out Thursdays. Alli and I talked about that on a previous podcast. Like, let's no technology in class for a couple of days. And what's interesting, Kareem, is that came from our students, and this is high school, but the students were actually saying that, right? Do you get that? Like, I get like with any school system, especially CBS being one of the biggest school systems in the nation, where you have these mandates. You kind of mentioned it's moving to a STEM or a STEM school. which there's a lot of shuffling. How does that come into play with, you know, trying to get some consistency in some of the things that you're doing? You know, because I know there's a lot of mandates across. So you have to turn in this sort of lesson plan, or you have to do this and this and this. How does that affect the way that you teach, or does it?
So we have certain programs that we are asked to use, or you know, told to use, and the kids are supposed to use them for a certain amount of time. And I make sure that that I do that, and but I also our extra technology time is I show kids for example this spreadsheets. You can put formulas in there to help. For example, let's say you want to find your average. We can put your scores in there, and we can find your average if we do this. So I try to extend the knowledge from the technology, using the technology. I'm not anti-technology.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not.
Yeah.
I'm not for all the iPads and computers away and go back to encyclopedias and like that. But I just don't want my students staring at the computer all day.
Mm-hmm.
So I make it I give them the time to do the programs that we are supposed to be using. But then after that, it's pretty much put your laptop back, and we're just gonna work on math, and we're gonna talk about different concepts, and we're not old school, where I'm standing at the board for 45 minutes, but more traditional, where it's going to be a lot of conversation, paper, pen, pencil, paper, and working it. I do let
have that productive struggle.
Yeah,
that productive struggle.
I wanted to give you an opportunity here to share out some of your connects. Number one, like, how can people get connected to your businesses? And also, how can people reach out to you? Honestly, I got to ask, how many male teachers are in your school? Because there can't be. Is there a lot? Are you the only one?
I'm not the only one. Currently at my school, teachers, male teachers, we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and then we have 2 aides that are. We had more, but some guys that took some different opportunities. We lost over the last maybe 3 or 4 years. We lost about 4 male teachers.
Mm-hmm.
So this is a much. I've been in situations where it's just been me.
Yeah.
So this school is definitely the highest amount that I've had.
It's a lot for an elementary school.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, my building is K-8.
You're right.
Oh, okay.
So
okay.
Chicago has primarily K-8 buildings. But I mean, all my other schools are K-8 too, and I've been 1, maybe 2. There were 2 years ago in middle school, we had 4 out of the 7 homerooms. We have 4 male Black teachers, which I've never had that before.
Yeah, that's a whole nother that's a whole nother podcast. But I will tell you, my first Black male professor was in college, and it was my junior year, right? So that's hopefully changing as well. I think students seeing somebody who is them, right? They can see themselves in that. But you're doing amazing work. I appreciate the fact that you're sharing your business stories with the students. I wish, as a business educator, I'm loving that, because if I get students coming to me at the next level, understanding a little bit about tax and money, and they know algebra, you just ask them, here's $10, give me 20 back, and they're like, no, and I'm like, well, you just did algebra, right? So. But yeah, share out like how can people connect with you and connect with the village and the businesses that you have as well. Where can people find that?
We're on Instagram. Shabby Fly is the IG handle. The Village _OP is the Village's handle, and that is where we mainly operate on social medias. Shabbyfly.com is the website. The Village is inside of that. All the Village products are inside of that as well. So yeah, the Village _OP and shabbyfly.com.
Got it. And how can people connect with you personally? Because you're taking business, education, combining some things, working with that crazy landscape of 5th through 8th graders. Is there a way where people can connect with you?
Sure. They can connect with me at Price, PRICE, at shabbyfly.com. SHABBYFLY.com.
Excellent. All right. Alli, last final thoughts here.
When you were talking about, going more, I don't know, quote unquote, old school, limiting technology, I was really thinking of, how the pendulum has to swing and how, it really has swung so far where kids are just overwhelmed with technology. I know my last couple years, I saw more and more students requesting paper copies of stuff, less screen time and everything. And so it's encouraging to hear that is also at the elementary level, and that we don't need I'm not anti-technology at all, but we need to find more of a middle ground, and not let that pendulum be strictly one way or the other. So it's cool to know that the math is still mathing with or without the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. You got to bring the human first, man. And the humanistic approach has got to be that middle ground. Well, Kareem, thank you so much for hanging out with us today on Disrupt Education. I love the lessons underneath. I wouldn't even call it old school. It's like old new school. I think you even said that. So I appreciate you sharing your stories today on the podcast.
I appreciate you guys having me.
All right. Thank you all for listening. For Alli Privitt, I'm Peter Hostrawser. We'll catch you next time. Disrupt Education. Thanks for hanging out. Thank you so much for joining us on this week's episode of the Disrupt Education Podcast. Be sure to like and subscribe so you never miss an episode.
Are you ready to disrupt the educational arena you're a part of? For more ways to get involved in the work we do here at Disrupt Education, check us out at disrupteducation.co. or find us on LinkedIn at Peter Hostrawser or Alli Privitt.
Our mission here is to help facilitate and amplify changes in the educational system through local initiatives and help you scale them into community movements. Our building network of disruptors in education are working to move beyond scores and grades as the only measure for student learning. If your school district, college, campus, or organization is looking for facilitators of this work, reach out on our website or social media.
And if you have any thoughts or feedback on this week's episode or any episode, we'd love to hear from you. Until next time, keep pushing the boundaries, taking risks, and most importantly, disrupting education.